everyone, I'm Mind, and this is set number 70732, the City of Stiix from the LEGO Ninjago Possession wave. This set contains 1,069 pieces, 8 minifigures, and originally retailed for $99.99 in the US. This video is of course a part of my Ninjago throwback review series, so let me know in the comments which set you want to see a throwback review on next. It could be any set from 2011 to 2018, and while I don't have them all, I do have a lot of them. So let me know in the comments which one you guys want to see most, and it might just be selected for the next Ninjago throwback review. This set was actually a very popular suggestion. I've had it suggested since I began this channel, and if you want to see which reviews I've already done, I'll have a full playlist linked in the description below as well as in the pinned comment. But now, with all that being said, let's get into the review. So here's the City of Stiix, and there's three main builds here. You have like the main actual city at the back, which has the giant tower, as well as a few smaller buildings off to the side. Then there's a ghost ship, which is actually a much more significant build than I was expecting it to be. And finally, a little speeder for Nya. Now this is a set that I'm very excited to finally have, because I never expected to actually get it. The Possession wave was huge when it came out. There was so many big sets, and of course introduced our first Ninjago D2C in the Temple of Airjitzu. Then there was also the Destiny's Bounty from that wave, as well as this, and those were all over $100. These days, multiple sets over $100 isn't like too crazy for Ninjago, but this was the first wave to have multiple, and most Ninjago waves didn't even have any over 100 at all. So even though I was a Ninjago collector when the set came out, obviously the entire wave was very expensive, so I opted to go for the Temple of Airjitzu instead of this one, and then this became super expensive on the aftermarket. I parted this out for about $150, and I already had the minifigures luckily, so that wasn't too bad. But yeah, if you want to buy this new, it's like $400 today, which is obviously a lot of money. All that's to say, I'm very happy to finally have this in hand, and I think it looks incredible. So let's take an up-close look at each of these builds one by one and see all the different details of this set. So we'll start with the actual city in the City of Stiix set, and this is actually built in two separate sections. This area off to the side doesn't actually connect at all. It just sort of hangs there loosely right next to the build. I like that from like a customizability perspective. I would have liked if there was some sort of clip included to properly lock it in place, but that shouldn't be too difficult to customize if you wanted to. It's just by default you don't have that. But yeah, let's take a look at this little side section first. In Ninjago, the City of Stiix is meant to be built on top of the water. If you've seen the show, you've seen that. And I think they do a pretty good job to represent that. There's all these blue plates at the base to be the actual water on the ground, and a combination of wooden structures and rocks to actually hold the platforms up. It is just very spacious and open at the base here. I would have liked maybe something in there, like a few loose rocks or a fish in the water or something. I don't know, this does feel very plain and basic. But you know what? It also gives you more room to actually pose figures, so I suppose it's fine as is. I do like the vines, or I guess seaweed, growing out of the base. That looks really cool. It helps break up like the very blocky shape of this section. Also, you know what? Isn't this called strangleweed in the show? Right, it comes out of the water and like grabs onto the ninja. I always love when there's consistency between the show and the sets like that. That's actually really cool. And then the actual platform just has some studs to pose minifigures as well as this cannon that can be spun around. It's able to spin a full 360 and it is just the classic LEGO cannon piece. If you've never seen how these work before, you pull back right here and if you let go, it'll actually shoot like a little blast out. So let me do that real quick. There you go. It's one of these trans lime green cone pieces. And there's two extras to reload it on the side. One of these like gigantic spear pieces is used here too to be like a flagpole, and that's actually very cool to see. It's a great use of that part. The cannon can also move up and down a little bit too, though as you just saw, if you point it down, the like cannonball can fall out, so it's better to aim it more up. Nothing too interesting going on here, but this is a cute little section. It gives you some fun stuff for play. But now there's a little bridge that leads to the next section, and this actually only connects on two studs. It's made to be easily removable, so if you want to have these two sections separate, you can, and this bridge can be folded up like this. And moving over the base of this one, again, very similar, these like wooden platforms to hold it up. There's a little more going on here, like the blue water doesn't feel as open, which I think is a good thing, and there's more of those sea plants growing out right here. There's another piece of strangleweed growing here too, once again adding more life to the build. And then if we move up to the level above that, you can see there's ladders on both sides. These can serve as literal ladders to get up to the top, or if you extend it out like I had it like this can serve as like a bridge to get to the main section. With that moved up to, you get access to the inside right here, and there's a treasure chest in it inside. Of course, classic LEGO treasure chest piece, but if we open it up, there's actually a total of 6 different gems in there. And these are just all like the classic LEGO gem pieces, which are not the most rare parts in the world, but it's really cool to get 6 different colors in this set. When I was a kid, I remember always thinking these pieces were so cool, and I always wanted to collect like every single color of them. So getting so many in one set's pretty nice to see. And there actually is one more later on, which we'll see in a moment. But yeah, that chest just connects on 2 jumper pieces, and can be tucked back away real easily. The ladder on the other side too could be adjusted as well. Climbing up to the very top level, again, there's more room to pose minifigures, but we also get to this windmill. This is a very, very cool build. I absolutely love how it was designed. The actual, like, I guess sails? Is that the right word? Sails of the windmill? They look to be somewhat homemade with, like, cloth stretched over these metallic parts. And the color scheme also obviously matches the ghost of this wave, which that's super cool to see. The axes, too, give this a really ominous vibe. And the best part about it, the windmill can actually spin. Now you can spin it just like you just saw with me hitting it like this, or alternatively, there's a little gear at the back, and that makes it very easy to spin it very fast. Here's how that looks from the front. then finally, at the very, very top of this section, there's like a build of a crow's nest. Is crow's nest the correct term for when it's not on a ship? I assume so, because it looks like it came from a ship, considering like this is a ship wheel right here. But yeah, this just uses a barrel piece, and you can put a minifigure inside here. Namely, one of the ghosts in this set is an archer, so this is the perfect place to like stand him up and have him shooting down. And this is able to spin too, so that gives you lots more options for play. Another very solid part of this build. Obviously, it exists in the context of the full set, so it's better with everything else, but even on its own, I think it does pretty well. And finally, we come to the big main section of the build, and there's quite a few different things going on here. First, on the right side, there's a little ladder. This can be taken down like you just saw, or put back up. There's a good little bit of motion, but nothing too crazy in this section. It does just look like wooded planks, which makes sense for this, but it's not like an especially notable part of the build. But then we come to the center, and this is actually really cool. If you've seen my throwback reviews before, you'll probably know I'm a huge fan of things like this. Little like prison builds that are a part of sets. I just think back to when I was a kid, that was just like the best play feature in the world. Being able to have a good guy capture a bad guy and throw them in the jail cell, or vice versa. And normally that's just a little door off to the side and that's plenty. But this is very different. It's actually quite big and you could trap quite a few minifigures in there. Visually it looks great too. I like how the gel bars are somewhat hidden behind these rocks. And the big ugly rock pieces are always great for detailing. I also love all the trans lime green in this build. Longtime viewers of the channel will know this is probably my least favorite LEGO color just in general. They retired it recently and I was happy to see that, because it got to a point where I think it was just very, very overused, and 9 times out of 10 it looked very bad in the sets it was used in. However, I will say, the Possession sets are a wave of sets that like used it really well. This build uses it in a way that feels very ghostly and spooky, while also bringing a lot of like color and vibrance to the build. And seeing it on such big pieces too is incredibly awesome. But yeah, looking inside the dungeon, you can see there's tons of room in here to fit minifigures. Like, you have this giant plate. There's a skeleton on the side, too, I guess to warn you of what's going to happen if you stay in here too long. By the way, a very small thing, but the skeleton uses an unprinted version of the Skulkin torso piece, which I believe this is the one and only set to ever use that. So in my opinion, that's kind of a cool thing to have. It makes it slightly different than a regular LEGO skeleton, and I really appreciate that that's here. The other side, though, is just completely open in that same section, and you can see there's a trans lime green spider in the center. Now, there is a little bit of play functionality with this part of the build. If you turn this, like, red knob on the back right here, this will actually open up the doors at the front. Because those big ugly rock pieces, yes, are actually doors, and just turning the knob will actually move both out of the way. That's honestly super impressive. Like, it tucks away real nicely, and it's a ton of fun to do, just open and close, open and close. And it's cool to have a way to, like, break out of the prison without a very obvious door at the front. The dungeon section overall is very awesome. Probably one of my favorite parts of this build. But then moving up to the next level, we come to Ronin's shop. Now, this is a very exciting thing to get. This is one of 2 times this has been depicted in LEGO. The other time is more recently with the Ninjago City Gardens. But of course, this is a more significant part of this set than that was in that set, so it's quite cool to see them like actually give it the space it needs. I like how they use the boat hole pieces to be sort of like the base of this section. That creates a very unique shape that I don't know if I've ever seen in another LEGO building. And here's a look at the front entrance. There's a sign that says Ronin's, though obviously it's a bit run down. It looks to be rusted and it's like tilting off to the side. That is, of course, a stickered part. And then there's also a crossbow that covers up part of it, and more of that strangleweed coming down. The doorway to get inside is completely open, and then actually in the shop there's tons of different wares to discover. The most prominent is of course this at the front, the red arrow blade. That makes sense, Kai comes in the set, and when comparing this to the show they do actually get the arrow blades from Ronin, so it's nice to see that actually featured here. There's also a little sack of who knows what on the ground, a mannequin with a hat and a mustache at the back, which is super funny. Cool to get the mustache part too, because it was fairly uncommon at the time. It became more common the very next year with Skybound, but yeah, when Possession came out, I'm pretty sure that only came in LEGO movie sets, right? So that's a fun part to have here. There's a counter for the transactions to actually take place, and there's like a potion bottle on the side. That, by the way, is the 7th color of gem that I mentioned, a color that's not in the chest that we looked at earlier. The desk actually connects on jumper pieces, so I'm removing it for now so we can have a better look at it. But yeah, here it is separate. You can see it's got that little opening mechanism, and inside there's like this printed green device. That's just a generic LEGO print, like I've seen that in many sets before. I don't know what specifically it's meant to be in this set, maybe just like a computer chip? If any of you guys have any ideas that like I'm not thinking of, let me know in the comments. But yeah, my assumption is that it's just like a generic artifact, rare item that Ronin has just collected. Back inside the shop, there's also a very nice looking stickered carpet piece. A barrel that contains some weapons, one's a little knight sword, the other is a trident. There's a golden dragon statue on the shelf, and then behind that we have one of the coolest things in this set. This is a stickered version of Klaus's spellbook. Now, Tournament of Elements was of course the season right before this, but Klaus did not come with the spellbook in any of those sets, despite it being fairly prominent prominent in the show. So I'm very glad they at least included it here, though I never knew this was in this set until I got it recently. They did make a new version of this with Ninjago Legacy, and I think that version probably is a little bit better, but obviously that was 6 years later, so it's really cool that this existed all the way back then. And there's actually a second secret hidden inside it. If we open this up, you can see there's one of the collectible Ninjago trading cards inside. If you didn't know, these are miniature versions of the old Ninjago trading cards from 2011 and 2012. The designers like to include them as little secrets in sets, and actually they still do it to this day. The Tournament Temple City just came with a new one. But yeah, they're super fun to collect. This is actually a micro version of the original Jay card. There's how that looks for reference. I will say the colors on this one definitely look a little bit off. Like, Jay doesn't even look blue, he looks more black. That might be a very dark blue. But yeah, I wish the colors were a little more accurate. However, I'm just happy to get this at all. These are a ton of fun to collect, and I believe this was the last one I'm missing. I think now that I have this, I have every single one. That'd be a cool video trying to compile them all together. But yeah, that's most of what there is to Ronin's shop. There's also this banner at the back, which we'll take a closer look at in a moment. That can very easily fold out of the way so you have better access actually inside of here. But I absolutely adore this. I love that there's enough room to like properly pose minifigures in here still, but it also feels like thoroughly populated with like different gear and collectibles and whatnot. This is a very fun little build, and I'm so happy it was made. Another really cool part, by the way, I didn't point out, these I guess are meant to be little curtains, and they're wing pieces I think originally from LEGO Legends of Chima. Personally, I'm pretty sure this is my first time ever getting this part, but it works really well to be like tattered curtains, and they frame the whole interior very nicely. On the outside here, there's a little crate. This holds this green ball piece, which you'll see what that's for in a moment, as well as another trans lime green spider. These guys did come in a lot of the Possession sets, but they're so much fun. Such a wonderful little part. Oh, and around back, there's also this little chain hanging off, which I'm not sure entirely what the point of that is. Maybe I guess someone in the dungeon could like grab onto it and climb up to Ronin's shop, or it's something to hang from like if you get pushed off. But yeah, it just sort of dangles loosely here. Not entirely sure why it's included, but hey, I mean, I'll take it, I guess. Moving up another level, we have this office, which I assume is also meant for Ronin. Again, tons of floor space in here, like you could fit a lot of minifigures if you really wanted to. But in terms of actual features inside, there's a chair for a minifigure to sit, a little desk with a chalice on it, and a green bottle at the back, which is very funny to see in a Ninjago set of all things. I don't know if there's any other Ninjago sets that include that bottle piece. That's actually quite funny to think about. Aside from that, though, it's mostly open. You have a nice little window right here, as well as some jail bars, I guess, is another window. But then the wall on this side has been torn completely open. Here we have a look at the roof, and there's 3 different roof sections, one here, and one at the very top, and they're all built very similarly. There's like these bone finger pieces coming off of them, but in spring green, which was a new recolor for this wave, and I love the spring green in the Possession sets. I mean, the Possession sets in general do have a great aesthetic, but this is such a cool part, because that's a part that's almost exclusively used in white and black, so seeing it in any other color is exciting, but the spring green especially with the dark blue, it just looks so good, so spooky, and it communicates the ghost's like entire vibe so well. And you can see, yeah, that tops off each of the roof sections, including the ones on this upper level. This upper level does have a few more spiders added in, and then here's like the office from the front. We have a sticker here depicting some like cracked bricks and some creature hidden inside. Not sure who that is, it's very ominous, as well as another little spider. And then you probably saw this dangling the entire review, but on the other side you have like this arm that holds a cage coming off of it. Now this arm connects on a ball joint so it can be moved around, and the cage itself connects on a chain that's sort of like threaded through everything. So while the arm moves, the chain sort of moves around it, which looks really great. At the end of the chain there's a little hook piece, and that can hook into the top of the cage right here. And then this cage design is fairly standard. I feel like we see things like this all the time. This might have been one of the first sets to do a cage like this. But yeah, you have these spears at the front that open up to be like a door, and then all the other sections are connected together. There's just enough room right here to fit a minifigure inside, so if you want to have a ghost or a ninja trapped in here, you can. Just plop them down on those studs, close it back up around them, and now they're just in a cage hanging off the side of the building. Just like the dungeon, I like prison jail cell features in sets, so the fact that we have 2 is very cool. And while it is pretty standard, this is a great cage design. Finally, at the very top level, we have one last room with a little stand in the center, and this holds a little stickered piece that looks to have a map of Ninjago on it. There's a better look at that in better lighting. Again, that's another really amazing part to get. I don't know if there's any other Ninjago sets that have something like that, but of course the map of Ninjago is something we see all the time in the show, so having a physical version in a set just makes sense. Aside from that though, just more room to post figures. This section is open from the back, and then we move up to the final roof at the very top. There are a few studs up here, so if you want to have a minifigure posed up here, again like that crossbow ghost, you can. There's not like a ton of room. You could fit maybe 2 minifigures, one on this side, one on this side, but I'm glad that's there. It gives you more options. The roof itself though, very similar. Again, those large bone pieces coming off. There's some nice flags hanging down, and then I love the actual point on this tower. This is actually a ball shooter that's connected on a ball joint, so you can rotate that down and like pose it and aim it at different things. And of course, if you want to actually shoot it, you just squeeze it like this and the ball will shoot out. That's what the extra ball in the crate is for if you want to reload this. but I love this so much. It's the perfect mixture of, like, awesome and silly. Like, there's no reason this building needs a ball shooter at the top, but it's a ton of fun that it has one. And if you don't want to use it as a ball shooter, it still actually looks really nice, and tops off the build fairly well. Like, the colors match, the piece itself provides some nice texture. Yeah, I actually kind of love this. And then finally, here's all three parts of the city put together. As I said, you just sort of lower this down. Those two parts don't actually connect, but that does lead to more customizability options. You can move that to the other side if you want, detach the tiny section. It's really up to you how you want to display this, though I do think the default orientation like this looks best. All things considered though, I really like this as a build. I feel like it has everything. There's fun little things to discover and collect, tons of room to pose minifigures and play with minifigures. Like, you could very easily populate this with ghosts and ninja and it would look great. It doesn't really feel cramped anywhere at all. And then the colors are also just awesome. I mean, Possession in general has that advantage. Spring green and dark blue just look great in general. But man, this build is a perfect example of that. I really love how this turned out. But of course, that's not everything in the set. We do still have two other main builds to look at, as well as the minifigures. So let's take a look at those, and then I'll talk about this a little bit more at the end of the video when I give you my overall thoughts on everything. So here's the Ghost Boat, and as I said, I never had this set as a kid. I just built it recently. And I never realized this was such a significant part of the set. I don't know, when I looked at pictures, I always assumed this was a small little side build, and obviously it's not as big as the main city, but this is still fairly significant. I also mentioned I parted this set out. This sail piece, I think, was $17. It was the most expensive individual part of parting out this entire thing. I did not realize I paid that much for it, but you know what, the set turned out cool, so I don't mind. But yeah, this is a fairly significant, like, villain vehicle, so that's quite cool to see. I really love getting all these blade pieces in spring green. Again, that's just a really cool recolor for that part. And back in 2015, it was a part I never expected to get in that color. Because previously, I believe this part was only made in metallic colors. We had gotten it in gold and we had gotten it in silver. I know we got it in black at some point, but I don't remember if that was before or after this set. Regardless, it was most commonly metallic, so it just being not metallic made it feel very different. But of course, spring green is a very different color too, and it looks amazing here. I love it as, like, the trim of the boat. In the center, there's 4 stud shooters to go on the offensive, as well as extra studs to reload them here. There's also a crate that contains a few accessories. There's just standard LEGO handcuffs, and then 2 different, like, standard LEGO key pieces to presumably unlock the dungeon, which we'll see in a moment. This center section has, like, these rounded pieces that could spin, and I'm not entirely sure the point of them. I mean, it adds some motion to the build, which I think looks fine, though I don't like these blue Technic pins sticking out. Not sure why they were included at all, and in fact, they're very easy to just remove. But yeah, they don't really add anything to the build. They're just sort of parts that are included, and I really don't know why they were. But obviously, the color's quite out of place at the very least. I guess maybe to make the holes seem less like holes, but I don't know, there's still holes and you just have, like, a blue piece instead. I really do not get the point of that. Anyway, moving back here around the sides, we have more of those wing pieces like we saw in Ronin's shop, though now they're in dark blue instead of dark red. Again, quite cool parts. I'm surprised they weren't used more often in more themes. The back of the ship looks quite nice. I like how they used a purple straw hat for detailing. That's a creative use of that part. But then, of course, my absolute favorite part, we have yet another dungeon. I cannot believe we have 3 different places to, like, trap enemy minifigures in this set, but I'm not complaining at all. All 3 are tons of fun. There's these metal bars right here that can be opened up, and inside there's room to fit a minifigure, or 2, or 3, or 4, probably. We have our printed lock piece right here, which is what those keys are for. And there's, like, a little window around front for whoever's trapped inside to look out. But if they do want to try to make an escape, this part actually pops off fairly easily. And now you have a much better look at, like, how much room's actually in there. And I love that there's 2 entirely different ways to get in and get out. Finally, the sail. The sail obviously looks amazing. I love all the little rips and tears in it. It contributes to the whole ghost theming. Like, obviously this would have to be possessed for it to actually move, because with these tears it wouldn't be too effective just as a sail on its own. But the way it actually connects to the build is very weird to me. It uses, like, these large clear pieces and it connects on mini ball joints. And I don't know, that just feels a little bit clunky. Most pieces like this use, like, Technic parts of the base, which are always locked in place. With this, though, there's quite a bit of movement you can get from the ball joint, so it can really change, like, how this is displayed. I mean, that could be good to an extent, like, you could sort of collapse the sail if you really want to, but I don't know, to me that doesn't feel like effectively collapsing the sail. It just makes it look kinda awkward. So I would have preferred if they just used a Technic connection system and had everything locked in place, but this is effective enough. And as I said, the sail's the most important part, and that does look really great. You can turn the sail side to side, though, which I do quite like. It connects with a Technic pin to the base and allows, like, a full 360 spin. The boat overall is a very good addition to an already great set. Not as good as the main city, but still a very solid build in its own right, and certainly a lot of fun, too. And finally, for the builds of this set, we have Nya's Speeder, which is weird to say the least. This, I do believe, is the first, like, Water Ninja Nya vehicle, which is kinda cool. It uses the dark red color scheme with, like, water blasts coming out, and it has, like, her original symbol at the front, which is pretty nice to see. But yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this one. I mean, there's stud shooters on the side, you push down on them, stud shoots out. There's some nice stickers of, like, these exhausts, and there's, like, texturing on these fins. These sloped metallic silver pieces are somewhat interesting. But yeah, I don't know, it's just a really weirdly shaped build. Here you can see there's the seat for Nya to sit. There's how she looks actually riding in it. So yeah, I don't know, I mean, it's cool to have something for Nya, but I'm just left without much to say. It's fine. If this was a set on its own, I probably wouldn't like it very much, but it's a small part of a much, much larger set. And the price of piece count on this one was good, so I really don't feel like this is taking away from the value of the set too much. And now, here are the first two minifigures that come in this set. We have Deepstone Jay and we have Deepstone Kai. I think the minifigure selection is one of the weakest parts of this set, and it's not because the minifigures that come in this set are bad, it's just the ones that they chose to include are a little bit weird. So Deepstone Jay and Kai, obviously very good figures. All the Deepstone suits are amazing, and these two are no exception. All the suits are very similar to each other, the only difference is of course the colors, the symbols in the center, and then they each have different weapons. Jay, you can see his little throwing stars down here, while Kai has like a little knife. But the black base color looks so sleek, and the little bits of metallic gold detailing look really nice too. The hoods that they used were also all new for this wave. They were the very first dual molded hoods, and I think they look great, a huge upgrade over the original ZX hoods. The ZX hoods look great for the ZX suits, but we saw them reused in Tournament of Elements and they were a little bit more awkward there. So at the time, it was very nice to see them finally switch, and I think this is one of the best ninja hoods we've ever gotten. Armor 2 is still the ZX armor, though recolored in black for this wave, which again, very amazing recolor to get. It had only been in gold, silver, and gunmetal gray previously, so this was an excellent change that made a familiar piece look very different. Here's a look at the back torso prints too. Both of the ninja have their original symbols there, and they each have like little hooks there too. Face prints are of course still the 2011 face prints. They were becoming very outdated by this time, but it's what LEGO was still using. So yeah, really good minifigures. The issue with these two is it's the exact same two that come in the Morro Dragon set. The Morro Dragon set's also the only other set to come with possessed Lloyd besides this one, so I feel like the minifigure selection in those two sets is just way too similar. Because in my opinion, you should have a reason to get the minifigures in every single set. So if there was a little more variety here, like this came with, for example, Zane instead, because Zane only comes in 2 other sets, then you would have the choice, okay, I want to get possessed Lloyd, do I want to get Kai and Jay, or do I want to get the set with Zane instead? But because the minifigure selections in those two sets are so similar, if you're someone who is aiming to collect all the minifigures of this wave and you care a little bit less about the builds, the only difference between those two sets is the price point, because all the important minifigures are the same between those two. So yeah, very disappointing to see. Even if they included one extra ninja beyond these two, it would have been something. But the only minifigures different in this set from that one are fairly uninteresting. So yeah, good minifigures, but just disappointing choices. But now here are the next two minifigures. We have Possessed Lloyd, as I mentioned, as well as Samurai X Nya. Possessed Lloyd is undoubtedly the best minifigure in this set. He only came in one other set, the Morro Dragon, as I just mentioned, so having a second way to get him was very, very exciting to see. He comes with a Sword of Sanctuary as an accessory, which is a great little build. Obviously a huge part of the Possession season, so it's cool to get it physically, even if it doesn't use like any specialized parts. The minifigure itself, though, is really phenomenal. He has this exclusive hood piece that has like this tattered robe sort of hanging down, and that green mask is like painted on and looks super cool. Taking that hood piece off, too, you can see his full armor, and that's a really amazing part as well. It's dual molded in green and black. And we do see that armor piece on other minifigures, including one other minifigure in this set, but all the other minifigures use it in dark blue and black, so this is exclusive to just Morro, and it does really look amazing on him. I think it's also very impressive that the hood fits over top of it. And then taking that armor off, we have a better look at the full torso print. You can see it has a very similar idea to the Deepstone suits that we just looked at with Jay and Kai, except now that like emblem in the center that had the symbol on it is like cracked and there's like this spectral like green fire coming out of it. And of course the actual ninja robes are dark green and it's all like tattered and torn up, but he still has like Lloyd's dragon symbol at the back, though it's got like these glowing green spectral eyes, to imply that like even the symbol's possessed, which is such a cool idea. Legs as well look really nice. I like the silver tips on the belt to contrast with the golden tips that the other ninja use. Oh, and this face print is really, really good as well. It does a great job to represent both Morro and Lloyd at the same time, because if you wanted to use this as just a Morro face, honestly I think it would work pretty well. But you could definitely see like Lloyd's smile in there. It actually somewhat reminds me of the young Lloyd minifigure from back in 2012. The shadows around the eyes are a really cool touch too. Unfortunately, there's no alternate face, which would have been nice to see. I mean, the main ninja still didn't have it yet, as we just saw with Kai and Jay, so it's not super surprising that's not here. But yeah, in my opinion, this is one of the coolest Ninjago minifigures of all time. Amazing colors, amazing printing, and the new molded parts look fantastic. Really happy he came in more than one set. But then we come to Samurai X Nya, which, I mean, I do like this minifigure, but again, I just asked the question, why is she in this set? Because we saw her vehicle that we just looked at is themed around Ninja Nya. It's themed around like the water ninja version of Nya. Why did we not get that version of Nya in this set? Especially because in the Possession wave, that version of Nya only did come in one set. She was later re-released in Skybound, so there was other ways to get her, but that would have been something else to make this minifigure selection more different from the Morro Dragon. Instead, we just get Samurai X Nya from Tournament, which, like, again, is a good minifigure, but this figure was very easy to get. She came in a set in Tournament of Elements, of course, and then she also came in another set in the Possession wave, which is actually cheaper than this one, which again is despite the fact that she was a ninja in this wave, so we really didn't need Samurai X Nya at all. Yeah, she came in a cheaper set this wave, a Tournament of Elements set, as well as a LEGO Dimensions pack, which was only $15. So I really would have appreciated a cheaper way to get Ninja Nya, especially because that's what her vehicle in the set is themed around. But no, instead we got this version, which I don't know, doesn't really make this minifigure selection especially desirable. Her accessories are kind of cool. She has a golden crowbar, and then 2 different colored katanas just like Jay had. And I do actually quite like this design. I think the green on her torso and legs is very unique, with like the sort of checkered pattern with the red. I appreciate her original symbol being included here too. And taking the mask piece off, this is one of the best Nya face prints we've ever gotten. There was an accessory pack, I guess released in 2016, which had a slightly better expression for her, with like that digital robot face like we saw in Season 1. But before then, this was the only one we had, and it was cool to see that represented for the first time ever, because every other Samurai X had just shown Nya's face. The alternate face too is honestly pretty solid for Nya. It makes her look a little bit old, which I always found odd, but it was a nice, like, neutral expression for her, and it felt way more modern than what the other ninja were getting at the time. There's a look at the back torso print, too. So yeah, quite good minifigure, just a very common one, and she just doesn't really make sense to be in the set at all. Now moving on to the ghosts, here are the first two different generals. We have Ghoulish and we have Wrayth. Now, Ghoulish, I believe, was the most common of the ghost generals, coming in 4 different sets, but Wrayth was a little more rare, only coming in his ghost tail form in 2. So you might think, oh, that's a rare minifigure you could get in this set, that's like a desirable part of this minifigure selection. The only issue is, the other set that this guy comes in is the Morro Dragon, so that is now the 4th, like, desirable minifigure that also comes in the Morro Dragon. Ghoulish doesn't come in the Morro Dragon, but as I said, he comes in 4 sets. He was not difficult to get in other sets, so he was not like the draw for this $100 set. But distribution aside, these minifigures are both quite good. The ghosts in general have a great aesthetic to them. The tailpiece especially looks super cool. It's dual molded in trans-lime green and dark green. Ghoulish, you can see, has that same armor that Morro had too, though it's dark blue as I mentioned, and actually it's dual molded with gunmetal gray, not black. I never realized, but that's another difference with Morro's armor. Taking his armor, mask, and hat off, he's got a pretty cool, like, skeleton design for his torso, and a very goofy-looking face, too. And around the back, he's got that symbol that all the ghosts use, though it's a little bit torn up and you can see a bit of his spine. Wrayth, on the other hand, uses this, like, ghost ninja hood piece, and that's a really amazing part that I'm surprised we never saw again. It's dual molded dark blue and purple, and if I take that off, you can see his face print where he's, like, all wrapped up, just with 2 little tiny eyes peeking through. I like the metallic silver printing on the torso, especially, like, on this upper part. I don't know, the idea of a metallic silver cloth is inherently very cool. And Wrayth is the Chain Master, I believe. I think that's his title. So he's got a chain weapon as well as chains in his torso, and that continues around the back, too. Again, there's that same symbol, though it's covered up a little bit more now. And these two both do not have alternate faces, but they do have back head prints. 2 very good minifigures. I really love the ghosts. The generals especially have fantastic designs. These 2 probably aren't my favorites of the generals, but they are still quite good. And finally, here are the last 2 minifigures in the set. We have 2 generic ghosts. This is Cyrus and this is Ming. Though these same exact figures come in other sets with different names, it seems they were just made up for the set descriptions. These 2 are very similar. They have the same exact leg piece, same exact face print. The only difference is what they have on their head and their torso print. Torso prints are slightly different, though very similar. They're both a purple robe with a spectral green trim, and then like a dark blue scarf on top. But Cyrus also has a dark blue belt, and the shape of the scarf on top's a little bit different. And you can see they both still have that same symbol on the back. And now we have a much better look at it. It's like a yin-yang of 2 different ghost faces. The transparent legs and heads are easily the coolest part of these 2. They look amazing, especially when you have light shining through them like this. It's dual molded in dark blue and trans-lime green, so light actually shines through the back of that hood piece into the head, so that way you can actually still see the face fairly well, even with the hood on. Because in comparison, if I replace that with a hood where you couldn't do that, the face then becomes very dark and hard to see. So that's a very smart design for that piece, but also just looking very cool from the back. There's a look at that face print too. I'm not going to take this guy apart because they both have the same face print. He's got like a sinister little smile. I like the little vampire fangs and the purple eyebrows. The ghosts are some of the best, like, generic Ninjago villains of all time, so unsurprisingly, these 2 are both amazing, despite not being named characters in the show. Accessories too, this guy has a crossbow, as I mentioned before, and this one uses an elemental blade piece, which it was cool to see that part again, because I don't think we've gotten it in Ninjago in a few years. But yeah, it fits these guys surprisingly well, works as like a spooky little ghost sword. And then the last somewhat minifigure I have to show you is a Screamer. These guys came in all the Possession sets, they were very easy to get. They have 2 clips as hands to hold onto accessories, and there's a couple different face prints, though this one was pretty common. The entire gimmick of them is they could fit around a minifigure's head, so that way that could represent the minifigure being possessed. That's an amazing feature for play. I used to do that kind of thing with my minifigures all the time as a kid. I was a little bit older by the time Possession came out, but there was a very similar thing in Alien Conquest in, 2011 that came out? And that was like my favorite LEGO piece ever. So I'm happy to see they brought that idea back with Possession. So the Screamers are a lot of fun. He comes with a hot dog and another elemental blade too. It's nice that he's included, but he's not like rare or hard to find or anything. But now, overall, what are my thoughts on this set? All things considered, this set is pretty fantastic. Again, my biggest criticism is with the minifigure selection, but it's not even that the minifigure selection is bad. Like, you do get some really great minifigures here, and the minifigure count's fairly good for $100. It's just the choices as to what minifigures to get. I hate how similar the selection is to the Morro Dragon, because it kind of just leaves you with a one or the other choice. And while I appreciate having other ways to get, like, Wraith and Possessed Lloyd, I wish this was a third set to get Zane or a third set to get Ninja instead of just being another set with Jay and Kai. But yeah, ignoring the Morro Dragon, I mean, the minifigure selection is still pretty good on its own, though I'm still not a fan of Samurai X Nya here. She just doesn't make any sense when the build is based around her ninja form. Oh, also, where is Ronin? He came in another set this wave, right? The Ronin Rex, and like the main build of this set is his little shop. Why in the world did he not come in this set? This would have been the perfect set to include a second Ronin, but instead we get yet another Kai and yet another Season 4 Nya. That's so strange to me. The build itself, though, is phenomenal. There's so much to do, so much to play with. It looks amazing on a shelf, and I love all the little intricate details. All 3 builds are fairly solid as well. The Nya vehicle's whatever, it just feels like a bonus to me, but both the ship and the main city are super cool, and I love that it's all villain themed too. Now, would I recommend you guys get this set? That's another story. Because if I was reviewing this in 2015, I'd say, yeah, if you're not planning on getting the Morro Dragon, I would recommend this one. But it's not 2015, it's 2024, and this thing is very expensive on the aftermarket. But depending on if you're getting it new or used, or with figures or without figures, this could be anywhere from $200 to $400. Which for that price, I don't know if I'd recommend it for that. I feel like there's probably better options out there. But if price isn't a concern and you're just looking for like some cool Ultra Ninjago sets, then absolutely yes, this would be one I recommend. It's one of the most unique ones in my collection, and it's also just a great representation of Possession as a whole. I'm super happy to finally have this one. I think it's pretty phenomenal. But of course, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think of this set in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to my channel if you're new. And as I mentioned at the beginning, let me know in the comments which set do you want to see a throwback review on next. And go check out the full throwback reviews playlist in the pinned comment to see what reviews I've already done. But as for this video, I think that's about all I have to say. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.